When you are learning something new, whether it's in business, relationship, or with yourself, what you're doing is you're collapsing time. And I mean learning in the sense of being a part of a community, being around other men and other individuals that are on the same path that you are. I believe it's fundamentally flawed to take advice or to follow someone that does not have the life that you want.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Today I'm here hoping to be able to interview Joey Wilder. He is the creator, inventor, founder, you name it.
We have Joey Wilder, first time coming on the show.
But at that moment, I had a choice to make. I either hit this while it's hot, while people are hyped up about it, or kind of let it simmer out. And I've been told by many great mentors that it's all about the timing of things. There's a lot of people out there that get caught up in the vanity metrics, the glamour that some may exude on social media. And behind closed doors, a lot of those individuals really aren't who they're portraying. And I'm not talking about anyone specific, I promise. So please don't take it that way. I'm speaking ambiguously. I've been in this space for 13 years now. And I've met some of the coolest people in my mind and in my eyes at one point in time. And after I had gotten to meet them, it's almost as if the person I was meeting was a stark contrast in a negative way of who I was truly experiencing. And sometimes that happens in relationships when you see that side of someone that is unexpected. Or maybe in business when you see that employee or that business partner just do something that does not seem like it's themselves. And I'm not here to relieve them of their responsibility. However, sometimes people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. And I want you to sit with that. People can only meet you as deeply as they have met themselves. And if you're hearing that and you're like, well, that sounds good, but what does that actually mean? Well, I'm glad you asked. Realistically, when someone isn't doing the work, and I mean doing the work in the sense of actively going to therapy, in a program, in something that is moving the needle, and I'm not talking about just reading books or listening to Audible or watching YouTube videos. That is not the same. You need to be in an environment where you are not only challenged, but also held accountable. Because your partner, your girlfriend, if you're a woman listening to this, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, they're not the space for you to vent all of your shit profusely. You need a therapist, truly. And there are things that you get to come together and share. And I'm not saying keep things from your partner. That is not what I'm saying. However, there is a time, there's a place, and there's a space for certain things to be shared in the way that they are. And that perfectly parlays into today's training, which is how to control your emotions, stay unshakable, and lead with power. And here's why this actually matters, guys. Most men are ruled by their emotions without even realizing it. They either react impulsively, and this leads to getting angry, defensive, or emotional when they're challenged. They suppress everything. They bottle up emotions until they explode, because that's just what happens. You eventually internally combust and you externally react. Or they seek external validation and they start to let others control how they feel. None of these responses make you powerful or lead you to an empowered place. And I say empowered in the sense of knowing what you want to say and how you want to say it, and knowing when it's time to take space, even when it's challenging, because reacting impulsively makes you a slave to emotions. And suppressing emotions builds internal pressure that eventually bursts in destructive ways. You know, we say things we don't mean. We do things to get control. And that happens on the other side as well. And I'm not saying your emotions are invalid at all. But when we start to seek validation from others, it leaves your confidence at the mercy of their approval. It leaves your worthiness on this plate that they're either serving you or taking away. Real power comes from control, and specifically control of your emotions. Because when you master your emotions, you stop being a pawn in other people's games and you actually start leading your own life. You gain the ability to make decisions based on logic and strategy rather than fleeting feelings that you are constantly trying to catch up to. And you become the kind of man that others look up to in times of chaos, a man who leads with certainty, no matter what's happening around him. Now, what I'm not saying is become this rock stoic man. Because stoicism is commonly misconstrued, and I'm not going to dive into that today. But here's the myth of just be more stoic. A lot of men think that emotional mastery means shutting off emotions completely. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's not power. That's avoidance. Men hear these messages like be more stoic and interpret it as stop feeling anything. But true stoicism isn't about eliminating emotions. It's about mastering them. So sit with that for a moment. What does mastering my emotions actually mean? Ask yourself, what does mastering my emotions actually mean to me? Because emotions aren't the problem. Lack of control is. True emotional mastery means you feel everything but react to nothing. You acknowledge the emotions without being controlled by them. And you channel these emotions into decisive action instead of reckless reaction. You become the calm in the storm, a man who leads with certainty, no matter what's happening around you. Instead of being ruled by emotions, you can use them as fuel. And instead of reacting, you respond with power. And realistically, here's why most men struggle with emotional control. It's because most men were never taught how to handle their emotions correctly. Instead, they absorb society's weak messaging about being overly expressive. They buy into the alpha male lie of shutting emotions off completely, and they never develop the self-awareness needed to control their internal world. Because without training, men default to one of two extremes. Overreacting, which means you're exploding in anger, you're frustrated, and you make these impulsive decisions. Or suppression. You start to bury those emotions, sometimes using substance, alcohol, or any other thing to suppress those things, which only leads to more stress, burnout, and resentment. And I'll tell you something, neither of these work. Mastering your emotions requires a third way. It means feeling without reacting, observing without being controlled. The men that I've witnessed that continue to rise to the top in life, business, and in their relationships are the ones who can actually maintain their emotional stability no matter the circumstance. They're the men who can navigate stress, conflict, and setbacks without feeling like they're losing control. And I get it. Life gets fucking tough sometimes. Like, I have some men right now that are in the trenches, and I get it. I'm experiencing that as well in my own way. And it feels like this has been a season of recognizing what God is revealing to me. And I don't have a specific answer for you, for me, but I put my hope in that this is all revealing something greater, and what is to come is greater than what was. And I share that with so many individuals. I have another friend that, and him and his partner, they've just separated, and I've gotten to speak with both of them, and it breaks my heart to see things like that happen. It hurts my soul to see individuals show up as versions of themselves that they are truly not. And I have deeper than empathy for those people. The men that I've witnessed that have become emotionally unshakable, I'm going to share a handful of steps here that is going to break this down. I have 4 specifically for you. This is how you become emotionally unshakable. Number 1, you detach from the emotional surge. The first feelings you have are always raw, they're unfiltered, and it's usually not the one that you should act on. Emotional mastery comes from pausing before reacting. When you feel anger, frustration, or insecurity, do nothing. Do nothing. In our mind, we're choosing that the happenstance and causation of the thing we're experiencing needs this to happen. Now, I'm not going to dive into neural pathways and mental reprogramming, but it starts with the thought. And the thought in those moments is, I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm frustrated, I feel insecure. And when those things start to rise, we want to react. We want to tell the person how much they've hurt us. We want to tell the person how horrible they are and all the things that we've thought in our mind. And instead, you can flip the script and you can choose to do nothing. Because if everything you've done up until now has led you to this place and is right here, right now is not where you desire to be, it's time to try something new. And I'm not saying suppress. I'm not saying do not feel. I'm saying choose to not react in a way that creates more emotional onslaught internally and externally. And guys, the next anecdote here is name that emotion internally. This is frustration. This is anger. This is rage. This is sadness. This is sorrow. Actually name the emotion internally and let it pass through you before you decide how to respond. A man who doesn't immediately react controls the room and controls the experiencing. It controls the thing that he's experiencing. But the man who does gets controlled by others. How many times have you said something you don't mean, sent an email that was more emotionally charged, and after you're like, oh shit, I can't unsend that email? I'm so glad that people can't unsend emails because I hate that people can unsend text messages and messages. It irritates me so much. It's like, just stand on the ground that you just shared. It's okay. We can have a conversation and conflict resolve. For some reason, in this day and age in society, and I've said this once and I'll say it again, people were not taught how to appropriately conflict resolve. And I know it stems from our parents. And I was in a therapy session recently, and I recognized the contrast in which I was raised in how to approach conflict and how I currently approach conflict. I was reflecting last night on top of that. We all have those people that we dated when we were younger. Maybe it didn't end well. Maybe you're a version of yourself that is not who you currently are. I know Josh and I have spoken about this, but man, there's one that came to mind, and I'm not going to drop any names because it just did not end well. And I actually had reached out to just kind of like close the loop with this person years and years ago. I never got any response back. And truth be told, I did not expect a response, and she's completely valid in that. But I wasn't proud of how things ended because then, guys, I was really good at retreating. I was really good at storming off, never addressing anything, sweeping things under the rug, leaving things left unsaid, not truly sharing what I'm feeling. I was so good at that. I was like a master at that. I remember once to get away, I'll share this selflessly. Once to get away, I went out on the balcony of the apartment we lived in, and I jumped off the balcony to get away. Like, it wasn't a high balcony, guys. I'm not that cool, but it was like second floor. But guys, I grew up in Tennessee. I climbed a lot of trees and used to jump out of them. So I just jumped down to the ground level floor, and she was still there yelling at me, and I took off running, like barefoot and all. I looked like a fucking caveman. And I'm not proud of that. Because what I truly wanted to say in that moment was, I feel really uncomfortable with how this conversation is happening. I believe that we should take space for 30 minutes and come back to this when we're both comfortable. I didn't know how to do that. I was taught while growing up that someone delivers an emotionally charged thing and you have a choice to either react or run away. And I didn't know much outside of that until I started doing the work. And I stopped letting myself get controlled by others. Because I didn't like that others could get me to that place. I didn't like that about myself. I didn't like that there were things that I was not taught, that I just didn't know what I didn't know. And that's okay. We're not taught these things in school. I think we should be. If it was my choice, I'd raise my kids on a homestead. I'd homeschool them and I'd educate them, because I believe in that dynamic. I believe in that world. I have a friend named Tucker Max, and if you guys have ever read the book, I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, it was a New York Times bestseller. He lives out in Texas, and he's legitimately started a homestead, and he bought like 100+ acres and has like other people living on this with him. And they've created like a school system. Like they've got an agriculture system. They've got it's crazy. And I'm all for it. But all of that to say, you didn't know what you didn't know. So if you're the type that gets triggered by emotional surge, use these steps in step 1, because a man who doesn't immediately react controls the room and controls the experience that he is having. You need to let that emotion pass through you before you decide how to respond. And number 2, is train your mind to reframe challenges. You can see them as growing pains, because weak men see problems and immediately feel defeated. It's okay to feel the weight and the burden of the experience you're having. I'm not saying not to do that, but true leaders see problems and reframe them into an opportunity. And I get it. Sometimes things you experience, they suck. And it seems to all happen at the same time. Life has a tendency to do that, right? It's like all the things come crashing down all at once, and then all the tides rise together, and then we feel good, and then the things come back down a little bit, and then you're back up. Reminds me of the movie, I believe it's the movie Blow, and he says, when you're up, you never think you're going to be down again. And when you're down, you never think you're going to be up. But that's just how life is. That's just how life is. I believe that my life moves in motions. And the notion that life, the God, the universe, is going to always deal you a pleasant hand is fundamentally flawed. Because if you only had an easy life, how would you know like what easy actually is? You would just have this like flat line. That's a numb life. But instead of saying to yourself, this is unfair, think this is a test of my strength. This is a test of my strength. This is a test of my fortitude. Sorry guys, something was on my mouth. Still there. One sec. It's like a dog hair or something. Gross. I'm just kidding. My dogs smell like oatmeal shampoo. But guys, instead of sitting with, this is unfair, think this is a test of my strength. Even when you're feeling weak, drained, and run down. And instead of, why is this happening to me? Think, how can I handle this better than anyone else would? How can I handle what I'm experiencing better than anyone else would? Because how you're choosing to approach this, you have two options. You can either approach it with conviction, or you can approach it in a way that you're just getting by. Life is meant to be more than just something you get by in. Life is meant to be so much more than something you are steadily existing in. And I get it. Life is tough at times. Men bear a lot of weight on their shoulders. And I'm saying men because that is specifically who I work with. We've started to work with women in our other business, but I don't work with them in this way. But in this, I want you to write this down. I love the moments when I realize that I am handling a situation better than a previous version of myself would have. Just putting that in the chat. I want you guys to write this down. I love the moments when I'm handling a situation better than a previous version of myself would have. Because instead of that inner dialogue of woe is me, why is this happening, this is unfair, and instead of I can't handle this, I can't go on, I want you to think, watch me handle this. Watch me handle this. Because you get to begin walking each step with purpose and your next with conviction, showing the world who you were, who you are, and will be. Your life should not be defined by those who have not lived it. The men who rise in life aren't the ones with no problems. They're the ones who refuse to see problems as anything but fuel for growth, and they lean into those growing pains. And the more that you lean into those growing pains, guys, you gain grit. You gain a knowingness that I'm going to get through it. And I lean on that myself. And guys, life has not been sunshine and rainbows. Things have been challenging for some time. And I rise to those challenges and always seem to come out on the other side better than I came in. And I look back in retrospect and see how it had to happen that way. It had to happen that way because had it not, I would not be in this place. Have you guys ever recognized that? Have you ever had a moment when you're reflecting and you're like, wow, life is really good in this moment? And there's other times where you're like, man, this really fucking sucks. I don't want to be here. I get it. Sometimes we can find ourselves in a place in our life where we're not ideative in a suicidal way, but there's this inner dialogue of, I don't like this life very much right now. I want something different. I've been there. Very recently, I told Josh, I was like, man, I'm leaving the US. I want to relinquish my US citizenship and leave and go somewhere else and start new and do something simple. Realistically, I love the internet. However, that idea has crossed my mind, and I would be lying if I said I didn't look through the options. And guys, it's a lot easier than you realize. I could go live a quiet life somewhere warm, tend to some sheep, do some easy things. But I know that my mission here is so much greater than that, and I would be selfish to do that. So it's not the time, but eventually my digital footprint, my presence online, I will step away with my person and my family. But until then, I've got a mission to fulfill here. I know that my mission is to speak into the hearts of men, to help them have the tough conversations with the man in the mirror. Sometimes with themselves, other times with me. Because in this, when you choose to step into, this actually perfectly parlays into number 3. When you refuse to see those problems as anything but fuel for growth, it perfectly leads you into number 3, which is to stop seeking external validation. Guys, if someone's words, approval, or actions can shift your mood instantly, you're not in control of your emotions. They are. And I get it, guys. Sometimes we're in love and you like enjoy that person and you want to hear from them because your anxious attachment tells you that they're leaving and that it's not going to work and they're cheating on you. Or maybe you're just hyper avoidant, or maybe you're secure. I don't know. I'm just calling a spade based off what I've seen. But regardless on where you're at, if you're seeking that external validation, you're not in control of your emotions. And you start with these 3 anecdotes. Stop explaining yourself, stop chasing approval, and stop reacting to every opinion thrown your way. As a man with emotional mastery stays grounded in his own self-worth. If someone insults, doubts, or underestimates him, he doesn't flinch. Man, if I truly cared about people's opinions, and I'd be such a hurt person. As I get roasted sometimes, and I'm using the term roasted because that's the way that trolls see it. Sometimes I share things outwardly that I have conviction on that others stand against, and that's okay. You know, a part of us being here is we can be indifferent and I can still love you, even when you're kind of being a B with an itch and a D with an ick. I'm saying that so YouTube doesn't dox me for saying that. That's good, right? I heard my pastor say that, and I was like, if she is saying it, I can say it, because she just said it during service. Guys, she did, and I heard that, and I was like, yo, I'm in the right place. But in that, when you can stand in your own self-worth, and you can stand on like not letting these insults, these doubts, like cause you to question, like, am I enough? It's not because you don't care. It's because you don't need that external validation. You don't need someone to tell you that you are handsome. You don't need someone to tell you that you're enough, that you're lovable, that you are everything. You are already all that in a bag of chips and the best thing since sliced bread, my friends. You just have to believe that. How come when people look themselves in the mirror, they always pick themselves apart in the things that they don't like about themselves? I stopped doing that a year ago. Interestingly enough, when I stopped doing that, like my body started changing a lot at the same time. Because if you look at videos of me from a year ago, I was way chubbier. I was still in shape, but my face was puffier. There were I just looked different. And believe it or not, I was really, really working hard in the gym. Way more than I am present day. And in that, I started to treat myself like someone I love. That was the kicker. I started to treat myself like someone I love. I was treating everyone else like someone I loved. And never putting myself first. Yeah, Lance, and the mustache. The mustache may come back at some point. I'm just giving it a rest for the time being. But the mustache, that was good. That was good. I had that thing going for a while. And he's just, maybe I'll bring the mustache back for a series. I'll be like, what's up? Welcome to Mustache March. We'll see. But I want to parlay into the 4th and final one here on how you become emotionally unshakable. Starting with and ending with number 4, which is channel emotions into power, not chaos. Emotion without direction is self-destruction. Emotion with control is pure power. You need to channel your anger to discipline. Use it to fuel action instead of lashing out. I'm drinking a dose of this. I don't have a tendency to lash out. I'm not a lasher outer. That's what we're going to call it. I'm not a javelin tosser. I'm not going to say the terrible things. I'm going to text Josh the things I wish I could say, but I'm not actually going to say them. But I've got them ready in the holster that I've got in the closet, not on me, ready to just take that emotionally charged statement, because no good comes from that. And I am really good because I was conditioned for that from the way I was brought up, because at one point, all I had was words. I couldn't physically defend myself from the abuse that I was experiencing. I couldn't. So all I had was words. And guys, I've always been this guy. I've always had a mouth. Man, I remember I tricked one of my parents once after they spanked me and they hit me like in my balls on accident. And I got mad and I ran into the bathroom and I locked the bathroom door. And guys, I think I was 10 when this happened. And they were like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. And I was like sad and crying. And I was like, put your nose against the door. And right when they put their nose against the door, you know what 10-year-old me did? I was like, okay, is your nose against the door? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, boom, I hit the door. This is chess, not checkers. And I stayed locked in there all night. That was the moment that I'd realized that I could defend myself, but I did not want to do that in the way that I was. And I had learned over time how to channel that anger into discipline and to channel it into things that were more productive. Even when it's tough, I started to take my frustration and turn it into strategy, which meant instead of venting, I use it to find solutions. I go to people and I'll share with them, hey, I just want to get this out. And then I may be open to your feedback in a delicate way. Is you need to have friends around you and people in your community that are going to tell you what you need to hear in the way that you can truly receive it. And if you don't have that, send me a message, reach out to me. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not a dick. I'm not a D with an ick. I'm gonna have to cut that out. I'm gonna have to cut it out when I clip it. But I'm truly not, guys. I care. I have conversations with so many people about business, about relationships, and I'm not here to I'm not gonna send you an invoice after. If you're interested in help, yes, we can talk about that. But I'm not in the money chasing frenzy. Yeah, money's great, but money is the root of all people. And the way that each person synthesizes it is on them. I'm not the man I once was when it comes to the money conversation. And this final one is you can take the fear and you turn it into awareness. That means instead of retreating, instead of suppressing, use it to sharpen your focus. Use it to lock in. If you guys don't know what that means, lock in means set a goal. Think of the thing that you need to work on, the area that you need to get better. If it's your finances, let's get to work. I'm with you. If it's your business, let's do it. You got questions, reach out. If it's your relationship, my friend, it's time. But realistically, guys, if you can turn your anger into discipline, your frustration into strategy, and your fear to awareness, you can learn to control your emotions and use them as tools instead of letting the emotions control you. Because this just leads you to a reactive place and no good comes from it. You can stop chasing approval. You can stop explaining yourself. You can stop reacting to every opinion thrown your way. Because guys, opinions are just like assholes. Everyone's got one. None of them are the same. And they're not all great. I'm going to stop that statement there. But the men who rise in life aren't the ones with no problems. They're the ones who refuse to see problems as things that are meant to destroy and consume. But they see those proverbial fires as a method to purge what can no longer continue on. Now, guys, when you do this and you step into this, you become unshakable. You become a man who can lead with his emotions at the forefront and having awareness of those things because you've mastered your emotions. And that leads to you becoming a man who is safe, a man who commands respect without demanding it. You need to respect me. That doesn't work. This leads you to feeling like you're steady, focused, and in complete control of yourself, which means no one else can control you. There's no more overreacting, no more chasing approval, no more being thrown off by others' opinions, moods, or words. Guys, if you are controlled, if someone else is having a bad day, let's say your girlfriend, your wife, and now you're having a bad day, too, that's a problem. If someone shares their bad stuff with you and now you're having a bad day also, or like you're sad as well, empathy is different. Sympathy means I am in this with you. We're in the trenches together. Guys, that is just setting you up for more chaos. When you stop reacting and start leading, you become the man that others look to in chaos. And that's the man who always wins. That's the man who's trusted. The man who knows where he's going. He may not know how he's going to get there clearly, but he knows he's going to get there. Guys, like realistically, if your kids were on the other side of the nation, let's say you're on one coast, they're on the other, and they were there and they needed your help, and you didn't have any way to get there, you'd probably start walking, right? If your kids needed help and they were on the other side of the nation and they needed you to physically get there and you didn't have any way to get there, you'd start walking because that is the first thing you can actually start doing and taking action on. If you have a bicycle, start riding the bicycle. Guys, there's a guy that's walking across the US barefoot right now. He's like broadcasting the whole thing on social media. Now Nike is sponsoring him. All of these other companies are sponsoring him just because he started walking. And his kids aren't on the other side of the nation. He's just doing this. Like, didn't plan to get all this press, but he is. But guys, if you want to be the man that always wins, and if you're nodding your head, yeah, of course, if my kids needed me and I didn't have any way to get there and I had no money and I had no things, I would start walking because that's the only thing I have access to. If you're like, oh, I don't have legs, man, I'm sorry. Like I can walk on my hands and handstand walk. So like learn. What I'm saying is find a solution. And what I'm actually getting at is this. If you answered yes to that, make that person yourself and start walking in the direction and taking action today. Do the simple thing. You may not have access to the car to get across the metaphorical nation that you're on the other side of, but you do have legs to start walking. I believe many men, when they're looking for a solution, they're trying to find the speedway, the jetmobile that's going to get them there quick. That doesn't exist. That does not exist. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And there's no such thing as a quantum leap. Guys, the thing is, to get from here to here, you're not just going to wake up and be here and be like, man, whew, that was fun. That's not how life works. That is a series of consistent and sustainable 1% moving the needle forward. And eventually you look back and you've come a long way. If you save $1 every single day for a year, you will have $365. If you're not going to the gym and you start going to the gym and you do that for 90 days, I guarantee you will get closer to the progress that you're trying to make. If you don't, you won't. If you want to be the man that always wins, understand this. Emotional mastery isn't about avoiding emotions. It's about owning them. The world is full of men and women who allow emotions to dictate every single aspect of their lives. They start to react to every setback, every insult, and every challenge with knee-jerk responses that only make them weaker. But you have a choice. You can be the man who stays composed during the storm, the man who turns frustration into focus and anger into action and fear into awareness. You can be the man who leads rather than follows. Because when you master your emotions, you master your life.